Welcome everyone. Hello, hello. My name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy artist. And today we're painting this beautiful sunflower on pink. This is our inspiration in one of my classes. So we do a lot of classes live in person. We also do online classes. So this is our little painting kit. I'm going to give you a little rundown on supplies. We'll have all the supplies in the descriptions. We have our paint and our water, our brushes. You order a kit from me, it will look something like this in there, and we'll have brand new paint for you. We also have a traceable with transfer paper that comes with it, so that's all included. And I'll leave a link below. And we would love it if you could help us out by subscribing to our channel. That helps out a lot. We are a small family business and we really appreciate your support. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we have our little family of brushes. We have our mama brush, little buddy, and then little bit. All right, and then I've got a little bit of some paint out already since I know what I'm going to be using, but I have started with a little bit of our titanium white and our Mars black and some primary yellow, and then a little bit of some cadmium, sorry about that, cadmium red, yes, okay. I think I was thinking about Cadbury eggs. Oh my gosh, busted. Haven't eaten in a while. Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some of our lovely background here. And it's going to be a mix of some lovely pink and then also some turquoise. So I do have some primary magenta. Now with your painting kit, it will be brand new. So when you go to get some out, it will have a little silver foil liner. You're going to have to peel that off. And then I've already done that on this one. I'm trying to use up some paint that I haven't used up before. So I've got some primary magenta. We're going to do like a little dime size amount of that. And then I'm going to be using a little bit of this cadmium red and then some titanium white to start with. I'm going to place these off to the side. I've done my trace already with the pencil. I do have a permanent marker in the kit. It's optional if you'd like to do a hard line around this. With this particular design, I like to go ahead and keep it a little bit soft. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started with, this is my mama brush, little Taklon flat brush. I'm going to go ahead and place it into the water for just a little bit so that the bristles will be nice and moist and flexible, ready to use. I'm going to start by picking up a nice big dollop of that white paint. So we kind of use the brush like a little bit of a shovel here. Pick up that dollop. Then I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little corner touch of that primary magenta. We're going to sweep that in. That makes a lovely light pink. You can also add a little bit of that red to that too. That also makes a light pink there. All right. Right, and since I do have a little bit of some turquoise that's coming up pretty quick, I'm going to go ahead and mix up some of that. I don't normally like to leave this brush off to the side, but I'll be quick about that. As a general rule, I tell you to always leave it in the water because acrylic does set up and dry pretty quickly. But I'm going to be fast about this. So I'm going to use a little bit of some Viridian, some primary cyan blue, just little pea-sized amounts here. And then I'll use my little buddy brush and we're going to mix those up a little bit. We're going to get a little bit of that cobalt blue and that Viridian together and a little touch of that white, and that's going to make some turquoise. I just want to make sure that we have that ready to go pretty quickly so that we can mix wet to wet paint as needed when we get to that point. All right, so I've just gone ahead and rinsed that out. I'm going to go back into this light pink here. And we're going to go ahead and start to place this into our background. And I'm going to go ahead and lay it on with a cross stroke. So it feels like I'm making the letter X over and over and over again. Lots of texture. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white here. And again, just crisscross back and forth. And that's looking really pretty. And if you want to intensify it a little bit, you can go ahead and dip into a little bit of that primary magenta. Start to sweep that in. Again, lots of repetition. And hold that brush kind of parallel to the canvas, where that brush handle is going out to the side. And that will give you a light, gentle handle. It has a lot more of that paint just really rests right on the surface area. All right, we're just going to continue on with this. I'm picking up a little bit more of that white and then the pink, and just crisscrossing that in, back and forth. And I've got some cut-in work happening. So instead of holding it more out to the side, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. I'm going to hold the brush like you'd hold a pencil. It's going to allow more of that thin line edge to face the canvas. So I'll use this to do my cut-in work. Take that around. And just taking care of that cutting work here. Lining that out. Okay. Now we need to start feathering out and blending in where we cut in and making that belong to the background. So we have to start turning that brush handle a little bit more over to the side, parallel to the canvas, doing that side sweeping stroke. And again, continuing on with a lot of that repetition. Again, it kind of feels like you make the letter X over and over again. Taking that back and forth. Sweep that in, back and forth here. And notice how I'm touching into a little bit of that primary magenta and to the white. You're going back and forth. It's looking really pretty. When I touch back into that primary magenta in a pure form, it brings in a little bit more of that dramatic color into the mix, and that's really nice in the tube. Oh, so we're starting to have a little bit of this. This is wet. We want wet to wet paint mix. So I've got a little bit of my turquoise, and I'm gonna start to kind of sweep this in a little bit here. Just quick light drags across the surface area, really light, gentle hand. So I'm really intentional about holding my hand more over to the side. And it creates that light blend of that darker turquoise blue. Just have a little bit of that peeking through here. And lots of repetition. Sweeping it back and forth with that little cross stroke. Sweeping it back and forth. It's really important that your pink is still wet. You get that wet to wet paint mix there. pull right through there. All right, now I'm going to rinse out. So I want to go back into more of that pure pink. With that primary magenta and the white. And I'm going to continue on with our soft blend in here. Then with that turquoise. Some of the petting work. Filling that out, softly feathering out that stroke. Cutting. Coming around those flower petals and then also now the leaf petals. And now we're feathering that color. Crisscross coats, feathering that, softly blending that in. And we have the leaf down here. We're going to cut in around the shape. And if you have a little bit of peekaboo canvas happening, which is the white of the canvas peeking through and you can't quite get full saturation over the canvas, I would add a little bit of water to that paint. That will help it be a little bit more fluid and help it flow into the pores of the canvas. Really helpful there. And you have a little bit of pink happening here. A little bit here. Taking another quick scan here. Make sure I've got everything. Nice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. And let's dry off. The next step, we're going to go ahead and work in some of this beautiful, vibrant color in our sunflowers here. Get some of those first layers down. So I'm going to be using my little buddy brush, and we'll use some of our bright primary yellow, and then also some cadmium yellow. A nice bulb of that there. And then let's grab some cadmium orange. No, I'm going to do another dollop of cadmium orange over here to the side. I want some of it to be used in a pure form, very vibrant. I also want to use some of it to mix up some browns. We'll talk about how to do that too. All right, so mixing up some brown, let's go ahead and do that so we can have it ready to go. So I'm going to take my little bit brush, we're going to add a little black to our orange, and that makes brown. Got that ready to go. I'm gonna go back in with Mama here. She's nice and clean. And I'm gonna go ahead and touch in some of this primary yellow. And a little bit of this cadmium yellow. We're gonna mix those two together. Make that nice and bright. And I'm gonna start to work this into the petals here, flower petals. And quite lovely. Just getting that first bit of color and layer down here. And keep in mind here too that as you're painting, when you use the line edge of the brush, it has a thinner stroke, applies more pressure. Sometimes it scrapes some of that paint off. If you really want it to have more of an opaque finish and really rest on top of that surface area, then you need to go back to holding that handle more parallel to the canvas. And that'll give you a light, gentle hand, allows a lot more of that paint to just really rest right on the surface area. So case in point, if I put it on like this, a lot of pressure, scrapes it off, it's more translucent. If I hold the brush handle like this, really thick coat, a lot more opaque. And so you can do that when you start to do your final touches too, a lot more coverage right over the top. Again, I use a little bit more of my cadmium yellow. And my primary. Okay, there. Really nice, bright, very pretty. Go ahead and come in with a lighter hand. Start to really lay on more texture over the surface area. So I'm definitely starting to turn that handle a little bit more. Yeah, very nice. Let's go ahead and rinse that. I'm gonna come in with my little bit brush, and we're gonna be using some of that brown and orange. So I'm gonna go ahead and do little touches here. This feels like you're making nice too. Without making little teeny tiny dashes. Mm. Okay, little dashes all over the rainbow. And so this is with our brown and our orange. Pretty, pretty. Okay. Got a little bit of a rent here because I want to start to lighten up a little bit with a little bit more of that orange and yellow. And we're going to start to kind of pull this around on the petal. So we're going to work on a little bit more definition around the petal here. And outside the petal, something I'm trying to kind of tell your brain is it kind of feels like a little bit of a parentheses around the outer edge. And sometimes I touch into a little bit of that. But mostly a lot of this orange. And then else, so orange and yellow, all that. And you can keep in some of that bright primary yellow too, right over the top, and sweep that in. And softly blend it in with it. Let's soften it. Light hand on this little bit brush too, to where you almost kind of hold it out to the side too, and then it allows a lot more of that paint to just gently rest right there on top. Now, keep in mind, when we get towards the edges here, I'm being a little bit sloppy. I know I'm going to come back in and kind of tighten up with my turquoise and teal leaves here at the end, and so that'll help refine those a little bit. All right, and I'll hold that brush out to the side. Come back in with some of that primary yellow, kind of help sweep that in, soften it. Let's smell that primary yellow. So we're softly kind of working back and forth at the blending of the primary yellow and that orange and a little bit of that brown. We're kind of working in that shadow and those outlines, a bit more of that brown and the orange. Primary yellow. Do light soft blends over the top. And then we'll keep working that wet to wet paint mix. You don't want to do too much of the outline, and it doesn't, you don't want to set up and dry, and then you can't blend the two together. So while it's still wet, I'm gonna work back in that bright primary yellow. Get a nice soft blend between the two, kind of softens that. It's a great painting for beginners. That's our specialty. We just like to keep it kind of simple with our classes. Never painted before. That's what you're here for. Simple. Yeah, wet to wet paint, remember, don't let it set up and dry too long. So sweep back in that primary yellow in there. And work that back and forth with that fresh coat of that orange and brown. And soft curves around those petals. Soft curves. A little bit of water to make it a little bit more fluid. You get a little bit more water, a little bit more twirling into the paint here. These little edges, we want those to be a bit more refined right over the top. And you get towards that tip top and you lift off with a right hand. Okay, a little bit. It's going to pull into that. And a little bit more. And then yellow, I want to make sure we've got a map here. Start to really sweep that in. Sweeping that back into that lovely orange and brown. And we'll kind of lay the brush over on the side to get a little bit more paint, just kind of rest right on the surface. I'm holding that brush kind of out over to the side. It's still a little bit awkward, but that does help give you more of a gentle hand. And working in that first layer of that orange and brown, and come back in with a little bit of that lovely primary yellow right over the top, sweep that into that shade. Oh, it's really beautiful. We have our lovely petals in place now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to work a little bit more with this brown here. We've got more orange. Go ahead and rinse out. And then let's use our little buddy. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tap in a little bit of black in the center. Tap, 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 get that kind of a nice textural look here. And this is just Mars Black. Just going in a nice circle. And again, little buddy, just kind of tapping. That little tapping gives that nice texture. And then we're going to add a little bit of our turquoise in there to create a little bit of that variety in the center. All right, so let's go over the white and our turquoise. And that creates some nice texture in there. Just tap, tap, tap that over the surface. Real easy. Love it. All right, let's go ahead and rinse out. And we're going to mix up some more brown. Okay, so there's our orange and our black. And I'm going to tap this in here. Kind of like a little donut of brown here, but I'm going to grab a little bit more of the yellow. And put it in there with it. Tapping creates that nice little bit of texture. And a bit of white too. That feels a nice little taupe feel. Really nice texture there, very pretty. Tap, tap, tap. This helps get out any stress you have. Very therapeutic. Really easy way to tackle that texture in here too. Things I have a lot of textural looks that are happening very easily. And then I want a little hint of that meridian in there. I'm going to peek that around. Kind of a little bit of white too. Let's tap in some of that. A little bit of variety. And then do a little bit of that orange. I tap that on too. And that paint's still wet, so it's absorbing in there nicely to be a little bit subtle in there too. Love it. Very pretty. All right, let's go ahead and start to work with some of this. I'm gonna grab a clean plate. I'm gonna use my turquoise. It to be plain. All right, so I'm gonna grab that because I've got that black on the other side and it's just a little bit dirty and it's got that slate quality to it. And let's grab a little bit more of our titanium white and our viridian and our primary cyan blue. A little bit of orange. So I'm going in heavy with a lot of the mix of the viridian and the primary cyan blue and just a teeny amount of white, keeping that kind of dark here. Do this. A little bit more water. It helps that flow into the surface area. So we're going to do that careful cutting work here. There's a little bit more of that. More cyan blue. And then I'm going to have just a teeny amount of purple too to kind of darken it up in the shadows. And then remember to hold that brush a little more over to the side. Get nice coverage over the surface area. And down here. Spin here. Kind of went into a little bit more of the viridian. It's a little bit of white in that viridian. I'm doing a little bit of that cut in. When I cut in, I hold the brush more like a pencil over to the side. And more coverage, hold that brush a little more parallel to the canvas. Right, and over the top here. And it's wet, just doing a little bit more of that shadow. So actually kind of blend the two. Putting a little bit more of that purple in there, for that shadow. Don't forget about your water as your friend here as you need it. Kind of helps work in some of that paint. Softly blend it in. Put more of that meridian and that white. Let's sweep that in here. Putting space of that color underneath. Same. Kind of your lines to look in. So I'm gonna take my little bit brush, do a little twirl, and I'm gonna take this to a nice fine point. Let that go in between those petals. Same thing here. Okay, like that. Doing some soft blending now over the tops of the leaf here. Have a little more of that meridian, that cobalt blue, the primary cyan blue rather, working a little bit of that white. Got a little bit more of a soft. And whatever in here. And do a little tight cut in here to get this to a finer point. Right. So we're looking pretty good here. Just trying to see about any little details. But this is looking like we're pretty much done here. We've got a nice, this has been our just our inspiration, a little reference. Of course, we've got a whole new creation today. So we have our beautiful leafy sunflower here. It's plain here. Let me grab a bit more of my little buddy again. A little bit more of this purple. A little bit more of the shadow. I like to blend that in. Again, I use a lot of purple in with the leaf too. So it was a Viridian, primary cyan blue, a little bit of white, a little bit of purple too. Do that unexpected kind of shadowing. So I believe I'm going to call this done. I think it looks beautiful. The other thing you can do here is you can sign your masterpiece here. I do recommend using the Sharpie, especially if you have a shaky hand and trying to make it kind of tiny in here. And or you can be a purist if you would like and use the little bit brush. Can give you a little bit of tutorial on how to do that. So I'm going to take the little bit brush, a little bit of water. Let's do a little bit of a push into this purple. And then let's do a little twirl. That loads up the brush, but it loads it in, just basically rotates it into a nice fine point. And then you're able to do a nice tiny line with it. Okay, just like that. I think we are done. Thank you again so very much for joining me today. This has been a true pleasure. And again, all the supplies that you need are on our website, tipsyartist.com, and I'll be sure to leave all the details in the comments. And if you'll need to email me with any questions, you can email me through the website securely as well through a contact form. Thank you again, and y'all have a beautiful day. Love y'all. Toodles.